contentious so far, but I don't think anybody is going to be arguing.
How dare they?
Arguing about that.
How dare they?
Yeah.
Well, they've tried. They have tried. I mean, I remember putting Michael Jordan up as number 4, and someone was like, he must be number 1. And this was last week, and I was so tempted to say, 1 second, sir. Number 1 is, but I had to stop myself. Number 1 has to be Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, the greatest sportsman. You know, and I even feel bad classing him as a sportsman, one of the greatest people.
Well, that's the thing. Some people in sport, they transcend their sport. He transcends all of sport, doesn't he?
He really does. I mean, especially if you think of sort of the time in which he was so great. You think of the 60s and 70s in America and sort of his fight for civil rights movement for African Americans. You think of the way in which he said, no, we're not going to go, or he's not going to go to Vietnam. And that ruined the best part of his career, right? He was exiled from boxing for nearly 4 years, couldn't get a license, money ran out. But you also just think, if we just sort of take it just from a sporting perspective, especially in boxing now, and I've come on this show many times and we've all kind of bemoaned what's going on with boxing, why this person not fighting that person, and he fought everybody.
The fights
like
got
literally
made.
Everyone.
Exactly. None of those guys ducked fights.
No, certainly not. I mean, you know, you can.
The loss wasn't seen as such a bad
no.
thing,
It was okay to lose because you were fighting number 1 or you're fighting number 2. You certainly weren't going below that. And if you think, even if you're not a boxing fan, you can ask anyone on the street, Rumble in the Jungle, they'll know exactly what that was. His fights were more than fights. You think of Thriller in Manila, fight of the century. And he wasn't always the favourite going into these fights as well, especially when he done Rumble in the Jungle against George Foreman, who was a massive favourite to win that fight. And it's funny, I was just sort of listening to a few of Muhammad Ali's tapes, and there was a part in that fight when he's fighting against George Foreman. He's doing the famous rope-a-dope, where he's literally sitting on the ropes taking punches, and George Foreman big and strong, and George Foreman's blowing, and Muhammad Ali saying to him, "Ooh, you getting tired, George?"
Yeah.
This is the wrong place to get tired. He was just such a good speaker. He was charismatic, and you think of those interviews over here with Michael Parkinson. He literally had everything you could want from not just a boxer, not just a sports person, but a human being.
All other weigh-ins ever, all other trash talk ever is judged against him.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Isn't it?
When you think about it. Yeah, it's almost as though it started with Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Anyone that does anything, whether it be your Prince Nassim Hamed's, who was very good, it was like, oh, he's like Ali, he is, and Conor McGregor, he's like Ali, he is. He was so good at the trash talk, so good at the one-liners. But all that being said, you had to go in there and fight.
Yeah.
And he went in there and he fought the likes of Archie Moore and Sonny Liston and Floyd Patterson and Cleveland Williams and Joe Frazier and George Foreman and Larry Holmes and Trevor Burbick and on and on and on. It was insane. Honestly, it was insane. But for me, he's number 1, not just because of his sporting achievements, because anyone in that top 8 could be number 1 if we're talking sporting achievements. It's for what he did outside of sport. You know, the world heavyweight title, I think, is the biggest crown you can get in sport. But it's how you use that crown, how you use that title. And he used it in the right way. And to his own, it affected him. You think about it, it affected him. Again, he was exiled from boxing.
Yeah.
He was shot down by a lot of people, but he carried on pushing for his people. And I think that's why he's so loved today.
So many iconic moments in his career, and even in his later years when he was a very ill man, as we could all see, that moment where he lit the flame at the Atlanta Olympics. He still had a great defining moment, even in sort of sickness in those later years as well, which says a lot about him, I think.
He did. Barack Obama, former United States president, said, the sad thing about Muhammad Ali is that not everyone got to share some time with him. Just to be in his presence would have been something. I've got a friend of mine who was in America about 20 and took a photo with him. I've never been so jealous.
Ultimate selfie.
It's the best picture ever.
I've been to the Ali Foundation in Louisville. You go to the museum, effectively, which is an amazing place. If anybody's in that part of the world, they should definitely go there. And you can watch all the fights. You can watch all of his fights and just sit there. You could just spend a whole day just watching the fights, and you can choose them, pick the one you want, press a button, sit there, put the headphones on and watch the fights. So,
it's crazy because obviously I'm a big boxing fan, right? And that's kind of what people know me as, a boxing fan. I rarely watch his fights. I mainly watch his interviews. I'm obsessed with how he talks. I'm obsessed with how smart and quick-witted he was. That's what my love for Ali was. The fighting was secondary. And obviously, clearly, look, for me, the greatest heavyweight of all time. I know some people might argue and say Joe Louis, but for me, it wasn't just his boxing that kind of pulled me to him and the reason I put him here. It was everything else. And again, look, there will be people that you can have your debates between 2 and 8. I'll let you have them.
Yeah.
And there's some people that maybe deserve to be on there, your Lewis Hamiltons of the world and others, but Ali quite easily number 1.